Roll call.
Parker. Here. Miss Linich.
Here.
Bergen.
Here.
Zittergren.
Here.
Chisel. Here. Whittle.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Item 3, public comment. If anyone has a comment they'd like to make to the council, you have 3 minutes. Please sign in at the stand.
Hopefully this is okay. I'm going to move this up because I've learned my lesson that I'm too tall for this podium. Hello, everyone. I am here tonight. My name is Sarah Brandt. I am on Highland Drive in Decorah and here tonight to speak in strong support of the proposed resolution titled Supporting Fundraising Efforts for the Pavilion Market Plaza. This is a privately led community initiative that would deliver lasting public benefit at no cost and no financial commitment from the city. The project would create a much-needed green space in the heart of downtown along Water Street. It would establish a safe pedestrian passageway, which would connect our school campuses to the business district, and it would finally provide the long overdue improvement our farmers market also deserves. In addition, the multi-use pavilion would give our community a flexible venue for performances, for markets, gatherings, and other events right next to our commercial core. Importantly, this formal resolution simply authorizes volunteers to pursue outside funding for both construction and long-term management. It does not require the city to spend any money, commit any resources, or take on any ongoing obligations. It only opens the door for private fundraising to be able to move forward. For the modest step of granting that permission, the community stands to gain a significant public amenity that strengthens downtown, improves safety for students, and supports local businesses and cultural life. I respectfully urge you to support that resolution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment?
Hello, and I'm going to echo much of what Sarah has said. Mayor, members of the council, and staff, I'm here tonight in support of the resolution for the Pavilion Market Plaza. This is a pretty unusual opportunity, a privately driven project that it can improve the area close to Water Street, give our farmers market a distinct tone, and create a beautiful, flexible gathering and performance space in the heart of downtown. And perhaps the best part, there is no money being asked for. This simply allows volunteers to seek outside funding for construction and long-term care, and the city retains final approval with no financial obligation. As a music teacher, I love this place for experiences for my students. And as a realtor, I can tell you that projects like this matter. It is projects like this that make people think Decorah would be a great place to live. It makes our downtown better and our community more welcoming. I strongly encourage you to approve the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Nate Furler, 317 Pershing Avenue here in Decorah. I'm here as a resident of Decorah as well as in my capacity as general manager of the Oneota Co-op in downtown Decorah. I would like to express my strong support for the resolution on the agenda this evening regarding the Pavilion Market Plaza. From the moment I heard about this project idea, I've been excited to engage with other community members and organizations to discuss the opportunity more deeply. Over the many months and discussions that have taken place, my excitement has continued to grow. The opportunity to imagine a new outdoor performance space centrally located near the downtown is an attractive endeavor. Wrap into that the potential to enhance the amenities accessible to the farmers market and their customers, as well as create additional sustainable energy for use at the co-op, and the conversation almost becomes tactile. Community and sustainability are just two words related to this project that resonate with the mission of the Oneota Co-op. The next phase includes collaboration and conversation as fundraising hopefully moves forward with the council's consent. Decorah has embraced endeavors the likes of which were once at this very stage of development, only to see them blossom and prosper. I ask the same chance be given to yet another project that this great community has a very real chance of making a sustainable and invigorating reality. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration.
Thank you, Nate.
Thanks, Nate.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the council? Seeing none, hearing none, I'll close the public comment section. Item 4, city manager, department head, and council reports.
Okay, a couple things to report on.
in talking with the sustainability subcommittee members that were discussing spray policy. Other things have kept them from their ability to work on it in this time. They're asking that work session be held in September as opposed to August. They're not at a spot ready to present. And so at this point, we do not have a work session unless council identifies a project otherwise for next week on Monday. Airport ribbon cutting, September 16th at 4:00 PM on the terminal building. They have a airport commission that follows at 5:00 PM. So again, September 16th, 4:00 PM, if you're interested in attending that. Reminder that our next meeting is Tuesday, September 8th. The first Monday is Labor Day, and so that moves it to the following Tuesday. That's all I really have to report on at this point.
I just wanted to give a few fun facts for the council. I was working on revenue today. We're getting ready for the audit, which starts next Monday. So I want to talk about some of the revenue that comes in that we don't have much say about that we just receive. This was being fiscal year 26 being compared to fiscal year 25. Gas franchise fee has increased 5%. Electric franchise fee 14%. Road use tax pretty much stayed the same. Hotel motel decreased 8%. The local option sales tax increased 5%. Water sales have decreased 2%. And overall, we have a 9% increase in fund balance compared to the previous year, what we ended with. To show how busy we are, we have spent over $5 million this past fiscal year in our special projects. So that'd be like Carlson, fiber. The biggest one was Hively. That was over $3 million. And we also received $183,000 more in taxes this year compared to last year. And just give a little update on the water billing. We are almost up to 1,000 people that have signed up for the electronic billing. So that's way sooner than what I thought. So that's a great number. And hopefully it keeps going higher to save the city some money on postage.
Here are the fun facts in Dropbox.
No, I can put them in there.
Okay, or email.
Sure, you bet.
Thank you, Carrie. Any other department heads? Council?
I was just going to give a shout out to West Union Trenching, but also to the city and all of the work that's been going into fiber. It's so fun to see them all over town and all the little orange tubes and what they mean. And then also just a thank you to the Decorah residents. I know it's an inconvenience to have not only our roads torn up, but also tons of trucks on the street, but people have been really appreciative. And it's really great to see the progress that's happening in Decorah. So thanks to city staff and thanks to West Union Trenching and all the work that's being done.
I've got one. A couple of weeks ago, I and like 400 other community members went to a premiere of a local filmmaker's short film called "The Best Things in Life Are Free" at Ridley Theaters. The theater was packed. It was more than standing room only, and it was, it's always interesting to see community members gather around a neat project and support someone. But the filmmaker's name is Luigi Rausch, and he's a wonderful young member of our community who's recently decided to, make a home here and commit to this place. And as I looked around the room, I saw a lot of, also sort of youthful entrepreneurial people who are at a stage in their life where many are thinking about where to live, where to start families, where to raise children, where to open businesses, and I talked to several of them. Just it was important, I think, to bring in. So all of this is just to say that I think of this next to our council's housing goals and initiatives. And when I talk to people, who are in that family forming and where to live stage of life, over and over, they mention the cost of housing here and the cost of childcare and the availability of both as major things that make it hard for them to imagine making a home in Decorah. I think, experiences like that have made me all the more certain that some of the big and ambitious initiatives in the city going on related to housing are crucially important to our long-term sustainability and health, to keeping Decorah the kind of place that many of us found it as, which is a place where new people could, new residents to town can buy a house, can start a family, can afford to live here and contribute to the community in all sorts of wonderful and creative ways. And so I just want to encourage the council to hold those realities, those wonderful gatherings of people and those wonderful energies that the next residents of Decorah will bring to us, in tension with remember that those are perspectives that are very important to consider as we encounter other perspectives on the prospect of community change, including more housing in our neighborhoods. So it was a great film, and you can see it on YouTube if you want to. It's always neat to celebrate the work of local artists.
Any other council members wish to share? Just give a glimpse of kind of what I've been up to. We had a really productive meeting with Rural Fire. Feel like we have a good relationship right now and their support of a new fire station. Met with Jim and Liz Fritz and Travis. And we talked about the pavilion some more, and I thought that was an extremely productive meeting as well. And I think that's reflected in the plans that they put forward. Went to Spectrum and got to do bingo with clients there. That was a lot of fun. Went to the Chamber Coffee event. Johanna was also at that last Thursday. That was great to see some young people starting businesses, being entrepreneurs here. It's awesome to always see that. Appreciate them investing in Decorah. And then we had a Decorah jobs meeting as well. So that's just kind of what I've been up to. So with that being said, I believe we're ready to move on to item number 5, consent agenda.
All right. And just for everyone in the room and council as well, Zoom is running. I've got it pulled up on my computer here so I can see that it's up and running. But we're having some issue for some reason. That's the only window that will not show up on the screen share here. Every other window you can see on the TVs, but if I pull Zoom up on the computer, it just doesn't appear. So, all right. With that, item A, minutes of the August 3rd, 2026 council meeting. B, claims. C, ownership amendment for Class E retail alcohol license, Casey's number 1591, College Drive. D, Class B retail alcohol license renewal, Oneota Community Co-op. E, special Class C retail alcohol license renewal, Fairfield Marriott. F, Class C retail alcohol license renewal with outdoor service, Hoffman Library, Bon Appetit Management. G, Class C retail alcohol license renewal, Center for the Arts, Bon Appetit Management. H, new special Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor services, Lucky Wife Wine Slushies. I, renewal Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service and catering, Toppling Goliath. J, resolution setting a public hearing for disposal of surplus sand. K, resolution setting a public hearing on ordinance amending Title 17 zoning of the Decorah Municipal Code, chapters 1708, 1788, 1792, 1796, and 17108 regarding last mile delivery facilities. L, resolution setting a public hearing on ordinance amending Title 17 zoning of the Decorah Municipal Code, chapter 17116 regarding data centers. M, resolution supporting application of Innovation Housing 2.0 grant and pledging funds. N, resolution ranking statement of qualifications for water distribution system hydraulics modeling. O, resolution accepting the 2027 Living Roadway Trust Fund grant. P, approval of traffic flow system for Highway 9 and Short Street. Q, pay application number 4, Decorah 2026 Hively Street Intersection Improvements Project. R, pay application number 1, Decorah 2026 Street Improvements Chip Seal Project. S, pay application number 9, wastewater treatment plant upgrade. T, Pulpit Rocks Campground and Community Event. And U, authorize Washington Street, Broadway Street repairs to Skyline Construction for $36,420.13. A note on that one. If approved tonight, we have been promised by the contractor that they will start work first thing tomorrow morning and have the project done before school starts next week, Monday.
Excellent.
it will be back open. Hypothetically speaking, again, we've been promised by the contractor, but if not, we've got a couple of plan B, plan C, plan D on ways around.
Okay. Thank you, Travis. Can I get a motion for approval? of the
Can I ask a
consent
quick
agenda?
question
Yep,
first?
absolutely.
Thanks, Travis. Item P, uh, I appreciate very much the staff's creativity in realizing that we can Frankenstein some parts from the short street controllers, which we're not using to make the Montgomery controllers work. I'm very grateful for that. And also it seems as if this is the right investment to make it short street. I want to make sure that we're all clear on what the 3-camera control means for that intersection, given how in the news, some camera surveillance of locals is. So I'd like you to discuss what a 3-camera control for the short street intersection might
Yes.
mean.
It's not a flock camera.
Correct.
That's what I want you to say.
Correct. Not a flock, not an ALPR system.
Right.
It is a 3-camera system which detects the intersection as a whole. That's one camera, one that points essentially uphill in either direction, whether it's going west or east along the highway. That's the 3-camera setup. Again, there's no license plate reading software as part of these cameras. They detect the location of vehicles. And I don't think, is this one upgraded to the point it can detect pedestrians and bicycles? Do you happen to know, Mike? It is correct. So this one will also detect pedestrians and bicycles at the intersection location to know when to cycle the traffic control devices. It does record the video, and when we have had more vehicle accidents, we have pulled that video to review, but it does not have license plate reading technology on them.
Thank you. That was a good point of clarification.
Thanks,
I'd
Travis.
move for the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All right, motion by Chisel, second by Neal. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Chisel,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Miss Lynch,
Aye.
Bergen,
Aye.
Sittergruen,
Aye.
Whittle.
Aye.
All right. Consent agenda is approved unanimously. Item 6, conduct public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement and issuance of notes to evidence the obligation of the city thereunder.
All right, I will give background for this item as well as number 7,
Okay.
6 being the public hearing, 7 be the actionable item that council can take. So public hearing is required prior to the issuance of any general obligation debt. The public hearing was set at the August 3rd meeting, published in the August 6th edition of the Decorah Leader, and we've received no written comments or objections at this time. Still true? Yep. The proposed resolution would authorize the proceedings for the city to borrow up to $969,000 to serve as a bridge loan for the portion of the $1.7 million of donations that have been pledged as year 2 and year 3 payments. Current outstanding pledge amounts are $830,000 roughly. This step does not borrow any of the funds. That is a subsequent action that council will then have to take. It is possible to approve this item, but still not borrow any funds. It's also still possible to approve this item, borrow funds, and not use the debt service levy, but use other revenues. And I point that out to be clear, that's not the intent, is to use the debt service levy. It's pledging the pledges from the donations. The expectation is the debt would be repaid as donation pledges are fulfilled. Actually, just today, contingent upon consideration of the full site plan, a donation pledge was made today in the amount of $125,000 contingent upon full award of the project later in the agenda. The only reason I point that out is that bumps that pledge amount from $830,000 to $955,000. Again, that not to exceed is $969, and it's meant to be a bridge loan to pay off the full project costs. And then as those donations come in, the bank gets repaid.
Was it always known that this is how this would have to be done?
When it was decided to go ahead and accept donations on a multi-year award, years 3 were the main ones we were going to be concerned about with the build out. Year 2, less so. and that's even still the case currently. The CAT grant as well as the WQI, they're allowing us to do mid-project drawdowns based on, quite honestly, our experience with them in the past. They know that
What does that mean?
they don't usually allow multiple mid-project drawdowns. So for example, WQI, that's $380,000 grant on the retention basin on the north side of the site. You build the project, expend all the funds up front, then you go back and you submit, here's the project, it's done. Can we have our money back, please? They give you the money. Both the WQI, which is administered through USDA, right? IDALS, excuse me. A lot of grants out there right now. Through IDALS, as well as CAT, which is through IDA, are allowing us to do multiple drawdowns through a project and not having to wait until project completion. So we're not having to expend all of the funds, carry that all forward. So that's $1.4 million in grant award towards the project. They're allowing us to request those in smaller pieces. So while the pledges are part of the total project costs, with the CAT grant and the WQI, with those disbursements coming in early, we don't anticipate needing this amount because year two, we think those pledges can come in before we actually get to the point where we're drawing down our balance, essentially.
And would you prefer more questions on 6 since we're just doing the public hearing or?
Yeah.
Okay. So keep asking the questions I have.
Correct. Excuse me. Questions of council should be more for item 7.
Okay.
As opposed to 6.
Yep.
All right, at this time, I will open the public hearing on the authorization of a loan agreement with the issuance of notes of evidence and obligation of the city thereunder. If anyone wishes to speak on that. Seeing none, hearing none, I will close the public hearing and move on to item agenda number 7, consider resolution instituting proceeding to take additional action.
And you had reached out to the CAT grant.
Correct.
So I would like to know what was said about in terms of if we don't build that 4th ball field, what that does.
Yes. So I reached out to IDA, their who administers the CAT grant. Mark and I had that meeting today. Our contact was out of the office last week, so it was as soon as I could meet with her. They said scope changes such as this, they don't often do. And when they do, it typically results in a reduction in the grant award amount. The follow-up question she had was, do you need more time? And I was like, well, time might be beneficial, but if we don't award the project, similar to, well, with the fire station municipal project, we're budgeting a 6.5% inflator year over year that it's not constructed. So if we're chasing a dollar amount that continues to grow, that becomes more difficult. But certainly understand the quandary about, okay, if we are pledged amount, but full project award, and this is getting a little in front of the skis here, but certainly they all tie together. If we award without all the donations current, or only using the donations current, we're at about 325,000 short from the full project revenues. Make sense? Like so if the later item to approve the project includes the alternate as well, which is how the CAT grant was written, with the $125,000 donation pledge today, contingent upon that award for full build out, that leaves us at about 325,000 short on the full. It'd be about $4.9 million project. We're 325,000 short for the full project costs.
If we don't, okay, so if we don't do the alternates because we're short, we lose part of the CAT grant. Is that what you're saying?
The potential's there, yes.
And how much of the CAT grant would we lose and would we still be fully funded?
She wouldn't give us that because they have to go to their board. They have, IDA as a board approves that.
And let's say that they prorated our grant, we lost some money, we didn't do the alternative.
Mhm.
Would the project be fully funded, do you think, at that level?
No,
Would we
because
still be short?
we're still short, even if the alternate's not awarded. The alternate was 220. Thank you. So even without that, if we take that 220 award out and the 125,000 contingent pledge today, we're still short 234,000, I believe. Yeah,
For the project without the
for the
alternative?
project without the alternate.
Plus whatever the CAT grant would be.
Correct. So that's just without the pledge today that was made today and the award of the contract, we're still short, assuming CAT grant's still in for $1 million, we're still short 234,000.
What's the plan to get that 234,000?
So the fundraising group, this last bid was quite honestly a bit of a shot across the bow. The whole time we were thinking we were about 80,000 within target, I think, Mark? Yeah. So we thought we were within striking distance. And so, this last piece of the field build outs was a bit more than, our CAT grant application budget for sure. And, that was a real big awakening for many, which they have recommitted. They're now meeting bi-weekly as opposed to probably about monthly. And those phone calls have already started. And I do think one of those phone call, not just one, but a couple of those phone calls may have been part of the 125,000. But in addition, you have brought in, is it 30,000, I think, this last week?
$10,000 donation. We had another 10,000 this week or today actually committed, and then a 7,500. So yeah, 27.5. Yep.
So it's still out there. I mean, looking around this room, I know I shouldn't say I haven't been asked. Mark's been asking me, but quite honestly, the fundraising committee has gone after heavy hitters, larger businesses. You go after what you anticipate bigger bites, right? That's part of any fundraising strategy. I would say the mid to lower tier of where you would expect the 10,000s and stuff, those calls haven't happened to the extent that they will now.
I have two more questions, but I'm sure other people have questions. My one question is, well, I have two more. One is, what's the incentive for the fundraising committee if we say we approve this project and it's approved and we go ahead to keep fundraising as opposed to just having the city pay for it?
There's still one other aspect of the project the fundraising committee is trying to get, and that's the playground structure that many of the people they've reached out to, I shouldn't say many.
But wait a minute, is the
Several.
playground on top of the 300 that we're already short?
Correct. So that's part of.
That's part of the 300 we're
That's
short.
no, because that will be part of the full fundraising ability, or excuse me, full fundraising. But if those funds haven't been obligated yet either. So the playground component can be built out based on the amount of fundraising revenues brought in. That was the last part of this project. If we're still short on the fundraising side, that playground's the one that's going to be sacrificed as a result with the donations.
But it's still, that playground is still on top of the 300,000. So let's say the playground is 50,000, right? So we still need 350,000 to do the whole build out, roughly.
If you want to look at it that way, yes.
Okay. So we're $350,000 short. Are there any places we can cut this project to get it on budget and not lose a grant?
So there's about 55,000 in change orders that Mark's reached out to ISG on pieces of the field that aren't the dugouts, the chain link, where IEDA says, well, that doesn't sound like a ball field to me. That was honestly our comment in today's discussion. If no dugouts, no chain link fence, then how's it a ball diamond? So about 55,000 that we've identified, asked ISG to change order out of the existing contract. That's what we've identified so far.
And then my final question at the moment is it common for a city to take on a bridge loan of $1 million?
I couldn't answer that. I don't know the answer to that.
Sunflower had to do a bridge loan as well. Nonprofit, basically.
Steph, if you're going to talk, can you come to the mic so it's recorded on Zoom?
Who secured the loan?
Decorah Bank. Decorah Bank secured the loan for Sunflower.
Yeah, but who was on the hook to pay back the loan if you couldn't do the
It was actually through USDA loan. So we had gotten 0% financing through USDA revolving loan. It was a competitive loan process that we had gone through in partnership with Alan McKee, REC, and My Energy.
So the USDA would have been on the hook if the loan didn't get paid back?
Well, Decorah Bank would have, because they were the one that signed off.
Oh, Decorah Bank was your security.
Yes.
Because right now the city is a security on a Decorah Bank loan. So that's a little bit different. And that's the problem. I mean, I have a really, this is a giant risk in a time when $300,000 is going to make a huge deficit in our general fund, right? And $1 million, even more so. So this, it's troubling to me that you've never heard of this happening. It's troubling to me that we didn't know that this was even going to be necessary. And so I'm a little frustrated and a little bit taken back and don't honestly know what to do, Phil. Like, I want to see this project happen, but this is a great risk to this taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
And we promised.
I want to be
Funny.
clear. Your question to me was, do I know if many cities do a bridge loan for $1 million? I don't know that answer.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear, like, this isn't,
No, I
I've
get
never heard of it
Yeah.
before. This is, I can't tell you how many cities have done $1 million bridge loan.
Emily, I share some of your surprise that this was kind of expected to follow from the choice to accept multi-year funding commitments. And I know I've sat up here at this dais and said and heard many others say that the intention of this all along has been that this is not going to be something that affects property taxes locally. And I believe that is still the intention of the fundraising committee and of staff. I think staff understands that to be council's hope. And I think that that's a perspective that we all share up here, that you know, that this is a fine, like, so for me, the question is this a financial mechanism to take good faith financial commitments that people like me and probably others up here have already made multi-year pledges to this project, that they'll follow through on it? You know, that's a really important question. And to get an answer to that question, we have to look at other big ambitious projects in the community. Vesterheim, you know, recently sent out letters asking for their 4th installment of 5 to their donors for their new building. Stephanie, I know Sunflower, you're not connected with Sunflower as much anymore, but Sunflower continues to send around their collection letters on the multi-year commitments. And my understanding is that community members who've stepped up to support these really ambitious community making projects are really good at following through on their promises. And I don't see a reason why this project should proceed any differently than the others. And so I want to sort of push back against the description of this as a big risk for Decorah taxpayers, because I actually do think that the vast majority of these pledges are going to come in I share Travis's sense that that the generous givers, not necessarily like the $1 million check writers, the $100,000 check writers, but the very generous people who send in $100 or $500 or $5,000, that there are many of those who have yet to be kind of asked. I get that, and I mean, gosh, if I have to give a little more money to make sure that there's a playground as part of this, I'm interested, and I bet I'm not alone in that either. So like, I feel like this isn't asking Decorah Decorah taxpayers to do any more than trust a community that has continually made good on its financial commitments in similar projects. That said, I'm a bit frustrated about this, and so like if this is the only way or the best way to proceed, I strongly hope as a city we find alternatives to actually financing this amount, including reaching out to committed donors and saying, if you're in a position to do so, we'd love, earlier checks. Like if you can do that.
Those letters went out last week.
Wonderful. But I can imagine other things that we could do as well. Creative financing, more Carrie's department. I don't imagine a future, and Travis, Carrie, Mark, I don't know. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. It's hard for me to imagine a future where that current $200,000 to $300,000 funding shortfall isn't mostly met by donations from the public, increased donations. I hope maybe this will bring some attention to the need for continued community support. If let's say there's $150,000 left, I'm still not going to pay that. I would not authorize paying that out of general funds if the question is put to me. We have alternatives as a city, hotel, motel tax revenue,
Franchise fees.
and franchise fees, elements of this that might meet the criteria the council has adopted for sustainability spending. We have a watershed. There's like a bike path, and so I guess I'm saying I'm just trying to make the counter argument. I do share a lot of your frustration, and I don't know what the correct path forward is necessarily, but I'm, if I'll shut up and listen now. I just wanted to say those things, that I feel like this is not us saying we're on the hook, our taxpayers are on the hook for $1 million in property taxes if things go poorly. It's very unlikely for things to go that poorly. There's no reason to think it will. And I hope we don't ever have to draw down this note if we do go forward with it.
Travis, can you talk about the process, should we approve this, the process that would be used to draw down funds, and would that come in front of council, or is this our option to weigh in?
No, it comes in front of council because the city has to enter into then a loan agreement with the bank. And so that's absolutely coming in front of council, can negotiate the terms. If I were to, how would I envision the first draft coming to council is it's a drawdown as needed, where you've got a maximum loan award and you've got an established interest rate within the agreement, and the funds are drawn down as necessary. Because again, the intent is that this would be a bridge between the donations coming in and the project having the cost incurred.
So in your estimated timeline, when would that point come that we were short cash and waiting pledges? Like, I think I'm hearing you say second year pledges to some extent may be in before we need to spend that money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like in 12 months from now.
So
6
even,
months.
sorry, even if this project is awarded today, we're in late August, which I believe based on last year's calendar, we're later than last year's award for one bid package one, right? It's pretty close. So if history repeats itself, we're not going to see construction on this phase 4, the field especially, until spring of 27. So that's going to be a large chunk. I believe it's about 800,000 or so, about 800,000 of the project cost. And I'm ballparking a lot, or ballparking as well as including anything not associated with just the building, the assembly of the concession stand building. In all actuality, that's about the only thing I expect to happen this season yet, and that's at best. So knowing that that cost isn't likely until next year, that those funds, we're not going to see the need of those expended until probably June, maybe July of 27.
But still a chance that that's this fiscal year.
There's still a chance, yes.
But that's the second year pledge.
Those would be second year pledges coming in for fiscal 27.
How many pledges are there that make up that amount?
Raw number wise,
Yeah, like 20 people, 100 people, 200 people?
no. Short of 200.
And any other comments? I think Steve brought up a really valid point that we do have other funding mechanisms, and it wouldn't necessarily fall all on general obligation, or I mean on the general fund for.
I understand that too, but you have to understand that any funding mechanism we pull pulls money away from something else. And so when we set the priorities as a council, 4 ball fields were not a priority, it was gift, right? And the gift was based on a promise that there'd be money to build them. And now I'm sitting here as a council member feeling like there isn't actually money to build them. And we're going to build them anyway and hope that pledges come in what could be the worst economy, right? That just seems to be getting worse and worse. And I don't want to be a pessimist about the economy, but most people are pulling back. And so I'm a little frightened that the economy is going to tank. So people are going to be hurting even more. Pledges won't come in and we'll be on the hook for $1 million. And sure, we'll find it from franchise fees, but then what else won't get funded? Right? We find it from hotel motel. Well, there are projects to me that rank way higher of priority that I want to see funded that include things like housing. And so I guess I'm just, when I think about priorities, which I'm always doing when I think about the money that we have, the limited money we have, it's hard for me to swallow 4 ball fields when we're 300,000 plus short and maybe $1 million. And that's just a lot of, and again, it's probably comfort with financial risk. And had I known this was going to come ahead of time, I might have had more time to digest all of this. But it's the restructuring of priorities that I am worried that's going to happen. Yes, we'll come up with the money. It's just that I prioritize a fire station. I prioritize housing projects.
Meeting our sustainability plan goals.
Yeah,
I'd like to see $300,000 go to art and music. We've put in enough towards sports this year. Yeah, I totally agree, Emily, about if we take the money from somewhere else, it's not funding that. John, how tied is this, would this GO bond be to only being used to fulfill the pledges?
So legally, I don't know that there's any.
It's wide open. We could take this out, $969,000, and spend it on whatever we want.
Not whatever we want, no.
But a 4th ball field for sure.
Correct.
What else could we spend it on?
Well, we'd have to set a new public hearing.
So what is, sorry, snark aside, I'm concerned about the risk of taking this essential bridge loan out if the pledges don't come in. I am also concerned about the city being seen to have a line of credit that could be used because something else needs $300,000 in 3 months. So is this GO bond written in a way that it could only be used to make the ball fields
Gotcha.
created?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is specific to the project out there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, when you said about the pledges before, I thought you meant restricted on the revenue
On
side.
the revenue side, yeah. So I wasn't on council when these fields were developed, and so too little, too late, right? 4 ball fields has always felt excessive and beyond what our community needs. I have been told many times, including by a carload of 14-year-old boys, how amazing they're going to be. I've heard all the compelling arguments. Um, I, it's the facility will be great. I trust that it will be used. I also assume that it will take money to operate and will continue to be an expense on our city. And I wish that we were taking on the expense of less than 4 ball fields. And this is what we have. And IDA has been an incredible support of rural communities and supporting this in this grant. And I'm really, also proud about the ingenuity that staff and our community partners put out. And I'm coming to this meeting tonight being like, I don't want to risk taxpayer dollars, local option sales tax, hotel motel, because the city thought we were a good fundraiser. When I was listening to the council meetings about this last year, the number of people who spoke as if they were a fundraiser, who were not. I'm not a fundraiser. So these promises, Emily, that you're talking about were like, oh, I promise the money will come in. And we can't operate that way. So I'm not in support of taking this risk. I'm risk adverse in this way. If folks who are pledges and can come in sooner, I mean, thank you for sending those letters out. This is not Steve, I'm hearing from you, like, we should trust our donors, and these 190 people, I'm sure are, strong leaders in our community. And this is not that I don't trust them. This is that this is a ball field and not a water main. And I don't feel like property taxpayers should be on the hook for this. And I'm frustrated as well that this was not discussed at the point of decision that we would take 3-year pledges.
I'm really curious to hear what other council members think, and I want to clarify that I only wanted to close the gap from $1 million to what I think is more realistic in terms of what we would be obliging some of these alternative funds for, kind of the negative worst case scenarios. I'm just saying that the pledges are probably going to come in, and I suspect we're going to close the gap further from the current number of 300. Travis, could you? You said it was 4.7 total now?
Now it's about 4.9.
4.9.
Mm-hmm.
So
So the budget, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah.
But the budget prepared for the 4th and final field was not to this level. The previous 3 approximate construction costs, not approximate, if we stick with field specific, not talking site improvements and stuff like that, it's less than 400,000 per field. So the budget we prepared did not reflect an anticipated bid where we're at today. And so that is a big piece of why it's still this short. And like I pointed out before, the fundraising committee thought we were within that striking distance of about 80,000. And then the bid came in and it was not what we had prepared in the budget.
So then why are we going ahead with it? I mean, it seems like we have turned down other projects where the bid was just astronomically above what we thought it was going to be. And that's what you're telling me. The bid is way higher than we thought it was going to be. We have 3 ball fields that we have funding for.
And I don't understand, because I thought that this bid came in like 9% below. So this is me, like I missed where the 4th ball field got expensive. It's also very difficult for me to follow these numbers without a chart. And it feels like that's like sort of a basic request from council. And I ask that because there are people listening to this meeting who have probably also been writing these numbers down, up and down and over. And it's hard for me to track what potential dollar amount in 2nd-year pledges and 3rd-year pledges we're comparing to in this 969. Wow, I can't even say that number because it's so big. Sorry, like, it makes me nervous. yeah, I feel on top of everything and being surprised, I feel inequipped to understand the risk that we're taking. Or how much this project is now going to cost that has gotten bigger because now there's a playground.
How are the other council members feeling about this?
Well, this is very similar to the Trout Run Trail project, which was multi-year and multi-staged. And the pledges were out at least 3 years. Some of them may have been 5 on that. People did come through with them throughout the whole process. We did little things like this to get one section done and move on to the next section. But from 1 year to the next, other opportunities opened up, which gave us the ability to close these off. And we got done without dipping into any public monies, city monies, other than what we pledged from some of the Park Rec Hotel Motel monies.
So Randy, do you remember if they took out a bridge loan like this? Also, the state of Iowa really hates that we're calling it the bridge loan, but
20 years ago,
I just wonder because that's a different type of taxpayer dollar risk. And then my question, Randy,
I believe we did have
something like this
fronted money in this.
I think that other city projects will front, like a nonprofit will will take this bridge loan out versus the city via Google 5 minutes ago. Randy, talk about do you feel like there's an application of the Trout Run Trail project experience being staged that we could somehow apply to this complex?
That would be a question for the people that actually worked on it, because originally the Trout Run Trail was just supposed to go to the trout hatchery. When they started applying for CAT grants, those folks said, this would be a really good project if you closed a loop, made a loop. So they ended up getting the CAT grant based on a loop. And similar to this, the last section, the bridge across Highway 9, was the absolute most expensive thing in that. When you leave that one piece of property that they know you have to have, coming down on the north side, got very, very expensive for the city for that little easement going through there.
Right. Yeah. And so, Randy, I'm hearing you tell or remind us of the experience where the project was A and money was raised and there was more interest. So we got B, we financed it, C financed it. And I think that's great creativity and ingenuity, and kudos to the trail that we have that brings in significant economic energy and activity into the community. This feels like we're doing the exact opposite, where last year you all were pitched by local community members who think that they're fundraisers, who said, unless you pitch a really big project, we won't get people to donate to it. And so we pitched a really big project, which we can't pay for. So I think that's my frustration, that there's a scaffolding in past investment that feels more natural, organic, less risky. And more recently, there's some pressure to, not more recently, there's this pressure to build the perfect thing. And I'm unwilling to risk taxpayer dollars to build the perfect thing right now.
Well, no, it started off as a 4-field project when we originally sat down with ISG, along with the pickleball, which then got expanded to 8 courts, which it is today.
But it didn't start out as a 4-field project that we were going to fund right away. It was, we were going to build them eventually.
We got the pricing for the 4 fields, and then we decided to scale it back. But had we gone ahead with them, our costs would have been a lot less upfront. So I would move to approve the resolution and finish the project correctly, because I have seen the dollars that come into communities. I've spent the dollars going into other communities for kids' events at these types of facilities. Independence is a great example, small community. They hold one-day tournaments on Saturdays and Sundays, and they've got 8 to 12 teams each day coming into town with parents and siblings, and their park rec does very, very well, making the money up on that. So
How many fields do they have?
4 with 1 practice field. So 5, but the practice field isn't set up for games.
I don't mean to add another question to the conversation point, but I do. I guess my question at the end of the day is, has the Park and Rec Commission been engaged on this conversation, and what is their input and thought based on what we're discussing here this evening?
They meet on Thursday, so I don't believe they've had an opportunity to weigh in.
So they didn't, Park and Rec hasn't made a recommendation to us that we should take out this geo bond to finish the project. That hasn't been on their agenda.
Correct.
I feel like our other commissions function in a way where they make recommendations to support difficult decisions like this. And so that might be a consideration.
What's the potential revenue? What is our revenue projection for this field?
I was trying to pull up the CAT grant application as submitted because I believe that was part of the component for that.
And while you're looking, I would say this is an incredibly difficult decision for me. I really don't know how I'm going to vote, and it would really help me out if other council members weighed in on this. I do want to give kudos to the fundraisers. They have raised an incredible amount of money, and the grant writers who got the CAT grant, it was wonderful. I just don't know that we were well versed in the shortfall that we were going to face, and that this was what was going to be necessary. And that's where there's a certain amount of like, and that no city does this. I mean, that Travis can't tell me a city that's doing this gives me trepidation. So I would love to know what other council members are thinking, because I'm open to persuasion. I just haven't heard anything yet that makes me feel like this risk is worth it.
So this isn't correlated to this project. Don't think I'm trying to tie the two like they're similar projects or anything, but you talk about mechanism. When I was in Humboldt, we actually did not just a bridge loan like that to this degree. We actually took out a conduit loan, is what they're called. Conduit loan where the city is the borrower for the community daycare center of $500,000, and we carried the debt and made the payment on their behalf. So, like I said, not similar project, don't read into that, but the mechanism exists there as well, and that was money to fund a different project outside the organization, that you can do that. It's essentially the same process. You're taking out a commercial loan and repaying it over time. But as far as cities borrowing funds to fund other projects that they don't have the cash to otherwise do, that I can tell you is regularly done.
Okay, I have 2 other questions, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Mark and Travis, but I'm going to. Imagine that I don't think we'd be on the hook for the $1 million. Some people's pledges will clearly come in. So let's say that we're on the hook for the 300,000 that we're short. All the pledges come in, we're still short 300,000. And imagine we decide we're going to take that out of park rec budget until it's paid. Do you think it's worth the risk, Mark?
One of the things that we do need to consider, to Randy's point too, is there is economic community. Like if we added a field, I ran the numbers last year, estimated community impact for adding a field, anywhere from 24,000 to 67,500 for a weekend tournament. We are also going to benefit Parks and Rec wise from concessions, either running concessions on our own, or if we have a third party contractor getting a percentage of that as well. And then you have gate fees, you have tournament entry fees. We're going to be able to run additional programming on that additional field, potentially expanding other programming opportunities too, pulling in other partners. So there is an upside. It's hard to kind of put myself in that spot with that question, but there's a lot of we haven't talked a lot about the upside of adding additional amenities too. The other thing to consider too is inevitably you have to rotate out fields if you want to minimize resources, maintenance, and things like that. So typically you'll have to renovate infield, you have to have some restoration too. So there are going to be points in this process, if this gets approved, that we're going to be down to 3 fields too, in order to increase the longevity of this investment too.
Steve, I had a question for you. I mean, it comes down to priorities. That's what the problem is, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, this is about priorities. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking about the other priorities that are at risk if we have to fund this. I already mentioned housing, fire station, anything else that we would need related to water. So I'm always thinking about priorities. You and I have had discussions a lot about the pool. So imagine we're $300,000 short. We want to build this project. Would you risk the pool needing the work that it needs? It's a $300,000 endeavor for 3 months. It needs a lot of work right now to keep it open.
I think if that were really the question tonight, the answer would be obvious. I don't think that we should imperil any of the many things that we need these alternative revenue sources to support. The hotel motel money is important and has been earmarked for years for Trout Run Trail maintenance. Resurfacing that road is a once in a long time project, and we need to continually be building up that hotel motel park savings account, because when that resurfacing bill comes due, we need to have money ready to support the resurfacing. So like, if I thought that this actually imperiled hotel motel monies to a significant amount, I wouldn't support it. I'm not even sure if I do support it. Like I'll say this, like I'm very sympathetic and aligned with many of Johanna's stated concerns about the scope of this project, how it's much larger than anything I was imagining. I think I've said to many of you in private and maybe in public, I don't know, I feel like the last time the city built ball fields, we just sent out a bunch of people who knew how to push dirt around with flags, and you know, we did it. And maybe going forward, given the economic and property tax challenges that Decorah is going to face over the next 20 years, maybe going forward, we need to get better at thinking about, you know, like instead of big grand projects that we take huge risks and big swings on, hoping that they work. And, you know, they kind of usually do. We can get them built. We can get a ribbon cut. Maybe we need to start thinking about neighborhood ball fields and neighborhood amenities and things that we can sort of do incrementally or along the way. I'm not comfortable with what this project has become, but tonight's vote is not a vote on whether we like that there's 4 ball fields, 8 things, lights, you know, a sewage retention pond, grant support from the outside, like a $4.5 million project that started out as a couple ball fields we needed to rebuild. Tonight's vote isn't about that. It's about what's the best thing to do right now. And I think that's maybe a different answer, because I do think as a council and as a city, throughout this project and throughout a host of other similar projects, we can't necessarily know. You can't wait for confirmations of revenues and fundraising before you have a plan that you're committed to. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. You kind of need to do both at once.
But I feel like we were told we were going to have the funds before we decided to go to 4. And that's where I'm a little like, ooh.
Just the plans. We have so many other things to talk about where this conversation is morphing in. I'm clear, Steve, I think, and I'm Travis and John, I'm looking at you for what we're voting on. This item number 7 is about the potential to take on debt. 11 is about not funding or funding a 4th field.
Correct. This
Okay.
item isn't the
is
field
not
itself.
about that. I'm just saying, see, tonight we are also being asked to fund and build a fourth field.
But
Yeah,
if we
and-
don't build the fourth field, we don't need this bridge loan, correct?
We would need some.
I would say we are still, we're, if there's no field at all, no, if there's no field at all, I mean, we'd have to figure out what IEDA says they're gonna reduce the grant by.
Okay,
Can I-
do we
can I
get to make this
suggest that-
decision tonight? Sorry, go ahead. Steve.
That's, I was just, I mean, I also would appreciate a chart with various possibilities going forward and numbers. I think, you know, like, would IEDA commit to a likely number in terms of a grant reduction? I mean, could we just assume a quarter? Like, that's what I would do if I was on their board.
Right, that's the number I would use is 250,000, but it's their board that determines that, not the staff. So when we asked the staff of what are we talking, they completely deflected and said that's a board determination.
And I get that entirely, but you know, like, I don't know. It seems like this is you know, we want more certainty than I think is really possible with a project with hundreds of donors and lots of stakeholders and complicated construction schedules. I mean, I don't know if certainty's all that possible, the kind of certainty that we seem to want.
Brent, Cody, Christopher, what do you guys think?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess, you know, hearing everybody's kind of comments and concerns, I think they're valid. One thing I do think that we should point out is that this is just to authorize that mechanism and not actually take out money at this time, right? So this is just having something in place to be able to, if needed. Nobody's necessarily committed that if we vote on this, we've just borrowed $1 million, because that is not reality. That's just saying like, hey, let's have something in place just in case we need to, or the council then wants to vote that to borrow that money. So I'm comfortable with that fact of if we vote on this, we're not obligated. We just did not take out $1 million loan, right? And to also not to continue to offend people out there working to raise money and pledge money and all the time that staff has gone through to make this happen, and the under 200 people in just the second year that says, yep, we're going to show up to make this happen. I think point Steve's made tonight is, yeah, I think this has become a really big project, and it's grown and it's kind of morphed into this huge thing over time. But you know, that's kind of good. It's almost kind of a good problem to have, is that we have all these people that are here wanting to donate the money and make this project successful, and we're here and we have these abilities to make this happen, right? So we're sitting here making decisions on hard decisions sometimes, and some of those hard decisions are trusting people to come through with what they've said they were going to do. With that being said, I fully trust the people that are out there knocking on doors and raising money, and the people that are pledging to this to come through. Now, we are $300-some thousand short. I get it. It is what it is. But to me, that stalling this now and all of that just to kind of fall apart probably isn't the best idea. And we have mechanisms to pay for that. Like, you know, the mayor said, we have, you know, hotel, motel, and other revenues. I also do trust the fact that, you know, we have not even tapped into a segment of people that, like we talked about earlier, like the big donors. Now, you know, people will want to probably make this happen. So that's where I'm at. So with that, I'm going to second Randy's motion, because we didn't have a second.
Steph, not to put you on the spot again, but can you remind us how many donations fell through on the Sunflower Project?
I think it was less than 1%.
Okay.
It
Thank
was
you.
maybe 2 or 3.
Okay.
And they were small ones.
Sure.
And that's kind of what Brent said a lot of what I was thinking too. I'm not worried about about pledges falling through. The 300 being short 300 is a bit of a surprise. I'm also in the camp of, I'm not a big sports guy, but this isn't my thing. But we were going from, we kind of went back and forth through this whole process, and it seemed as though everything was lining up for it to be having the funds. So the $300 or the 300,000 is surprising. But I know that there's a lot of people that are pumped about this, and I know that it could be a good thing for our town and bring a lot of revenue in, as Mark said. I'm not worried about the pledges falling through. I don't think, like Mayor said, or Steve said, this community is supportive, and I've believed that to its core. That's what Decorah is, and there are uncertainties in the economy of this country, but I don't think that people are going to fall through on their pledges. The $300,000 is it's a bit of a startle, but losing the CAT grant is also not gonna benefit us. I also would like to know what we would lose on the CAT grant and not building the fourth field. I'm thinking about the 300,000. I'm not thinking about the full pledged amount. I have faith that that's going to come through.
And I want to be clear too, that I have I'm sort of agnostic to the idea if pledges come in or not. At this table, we are responsible for taxpayer dollars in Decorah. And this feels like a risk that I am uninterested in taking due to the many pressing priorities that our city has and my concern about over-reliance on our debt capacity right now in light of significant important improvements to be discussed to the tune of $20 million momentarily. And so I understand that we may never use this. Brent, thank you. I will vote no to use any of it if that is what comes to us beforehand. And I just, it is hard for me to be compelled to support the reach part of a project that feels like it's gone past meeting basic necessities of our community at risk of our city funds and our responsibility of what we can do right here.
Ultimately, in tonight's conversation points, obviously there's been a lot of back and forth. I know we tabled this at our last meeting. I expressed some reservations at that meeting. Those reservations still stand. To Johanna's point that was just made and others' points tonight, I don't want to put, taxpayers at risk or on the hook. And also, to the point that's been made multiple times tonight, is that, okay, if we do have to dip in these other pools of money, what is that risking for other projects down the road? And we have priorities. We've established a list of priorities. And so, ultimately, if it comes to having to make those decisions, I just feel like we need to have in our forefront mind of what decisions we're going to have to make down the road and what that implication can have on the community as a whole as well. The one thing I will note, to Brent's comment, the only thing that's really having me 50-50 on, if my actionable step on this tonight is that obviously this is just saying, yeah, but it does have to come back to council. And ultimately we could say no then.
But we'd be, correct me if I'm wrong, we can't say no to use borrowed money that we've already spent the money. Like we already contracted people to build it. Correct? Oh, so let's say we take out the $1 million loan.
So if you take that part out.
Right, we take the $1 million loan out, but what this is going to cover is if services have been rendered, but we don't have the money to pay those services.
Correct.
So we can't really say, no, we're not going to pay the people that have already done work. Like if we take out the $1 million and we need it, we can't really say no to using it. We have to use it. That makes sense because we will have spent the money already. And the whole purpose of taking out the $1 million is because we want to move forward with the project we don't have money for, hoping that the money comes in to pay for it. And if it doesn't, we're going to use the $1 million that we just took out of bridge loan. So I want to be clear, like we can't say no to spending the $1 million because if we are being asked to spend the $1 million, that means we owe somebody that money already. What I am curious about is, can we approve that? Can we, number 11 is the trigger that gives us the shortfall. Can we table 11? Or do we need to know if we're going to build that fourth ball field tonight? Because in some ways, this is why it's so helpful. I don't come knowing how I'm going to vote. Like I really don't. And I'm thankful for what I've heard. I do not feel like I am equipped to answer whether or not we should build a fourth ball field. It's 78% over budget. Any other proposal to do anything 78% over an engineering budget is generally a no on our part because we would want to go back and get a better bid. So I guess I have a question in terms of process. Can we say, yes, we could take out the $1 million to cover the donations, God forbid they don't come in, but with a grand trust of our community that they will. And I think that Brent's line, that really resonated, right? I trust the Decorah community. So I'm willing to take my fear of donations coming off the table. The two things now that give me then the trepidation is the $300,000 we have yet to raise, plus the 78% over bid price.
So that 78% over engineer's estimate, I want to be clear, that is on the alternate portion only. So the
That's what I mean. That's what
okay.
I mean. I understand that. So that's what I'm saying. Can we table doing the alternate proposal until we can figure out if we're going to get more money? I mean, or get a better bid, or can we not get a better bid?
We'd have to reject and go back out to bid to do that.
Why did this one come in higher than the others?
So I don't have a great answer for that, but I want to, based on the conversation here, I don't know that I was clear enough when I talked about the budget that was prepared for this with the CAC grant application that included the build out of the fourth field, which I know this predates some of you on council, but I ask you that have been on, please remember, we had this conversation on the CAC grant application on whether to submit for 3 fields for 500,000 or $1 million for the fourth field, because IDA viewed there were 2 thresholds in that application. One was the community attraction part that was 500,000. The other one was tourism. And that was the component that if you go to 4, this would be a tourism component, you'd be eligible for up to $1 million. So that decision was made by council last year, I believe in October.
No, I understand that. I think we just didn't know the shortfall.
So the budget, correct. The budget prepared for that fourth field was not, and I'm lumping in the foundation work and the assembly of the concession stand. That's $1 million total. But if I back the assembly of the construction and the foundation work, it's still like $750,000, $800,000. If you go on like the line by line, you try and pull out all the pieces that aren't associated with the concession stand. So the budget we prepared for the CAC grant application is not what we saw in this bid or the engineer's estimate. So when we submitted that application 10 months ago, we didn't expect cost to be that high. That's why the shortfall is where it's at today.
So you're saying, no, if we back it up to 3 fields, that CAT grant could go down to $500,000.
I'm not,
but based on their thresholds from the previous application.
Potentially. I'm not throwing that out there.
No, I know, but I mean, that just seems kind of logical that if it was 300 or 500 for 3 fields or $1 million for 4, that they would quite possibly cut it back to half the grant.
And that's the part that when we talked with the CAT grant program manager with us today, She said we would have to submit a formal request to IDA. I don't know that they're able to provide us an estimated amount. They're gonna want to see from us, are you doing the project or not?
But I fully kind of get what Randy's logic is there.
Mhm.
on that.
I'm sensitive to the fact that this has been a long conversation, and I think it's an important one, and a reminder to the public that we don't get to talk to each other except for in this meeting. So that's why there's a lot of back and forth and question and answer. I've got another question, Travis. How let's say that we decided not to proceed with this potential way of bridging things and making sure that we can move forward with the project. What's the alternative? Like, what would the city do?
The alternative is similar to when I say similar, we can award projects and then simply do what we call an interfund loan, like we did with Bluffside Gardens. So to Emily's comment before, if we have a project awarded and we don't have the cash in hand, we can do what's called an interfund loan and repay wherever we take the money from. So for example, we could say the water fund has a balance in there that and you have to assign yourself an interest rate. To be clear, this isn't like a 0% interest type shell game. This is you are truly loaning yourself money out of a different fund and repaying that fund back. So like Bluffside Gardens is the most recent one that we've had to do with the TIF debt obligation there.
What informed staff's decision to recommend this way of managing the timing of the finances coming in and going out versus interfund loan?
Largely the flexibility it provided, where the thought being if we, the city, consider a loan similar to how I explained before, where you establish a maximum loan amount, interest rate that's applied, and it's a drawdown on an as-needed basis. Fiber the premises. That's exactly how that loan is structured. We have a max amount, and as the bills come in, Carrie does a drawdown from that loan, and then we turn around, we pay the bills with it. So it's the same process as that.
Could you explain again why an interfund loan is not preferable to this? What additional flexibility does a general obligation note give the city?
So we'd have to essentially come to council with every time we want to do that type of transfer.
I see. Well, then that information is helpful to me, and makes me wonder maybe more so if this is the best way to manage this because of the optics and community perception of a general obligation note versus it's temporarily borrowing money the way that we have from ourselves and paying ourselves back with interest. That feels to me more palatable, even if it's a little bit more paperwork. I also think that it's more in line with the spirit of the commitments we've persistently made to the community, that we are not going to dip into property tax dollars, including a debt repayment levy, for this project.
Mm-hmm. I'd have to follow up on that because it would be novel. But what I just had kind of pop into my head is if we do structure it that way, we could say, we're essentially structuring it. I was thinking we could almost structure it as a revenue note ourselves. Again, it's got an interest obligation to it. But I don't know that we can set it up. We'd have to almost assign a different revenue as the collateral.
The swimming pool.
That's a standing joke on pool revenue bonds. I'll sell you some real cheap.
What's the interest rate on this loan? Variable?
It's not negotiated yet.
Okay.
We've had preliminary discussions with one of our local banks. They are looking at a subprime rate.
Mhm.
there's no doubt our local banks are extremely supportive of different community projects and everything. And so, yeah, we're looking at a subprime rate.
And I want to be clear, this isn't about support for a project. It is merely a financial decision about what we're willing to risk. And I have been so adamant that I'm not willing to risk an increase in property taxes for a fourth ball field. And this feels like we're headed down that road. And that's why, especially when you're looking at a 78% overbid from an engineer's estimate. So that's why this isn't so black and white.
I get, Emily, that these are connected conversations, and I've certainly connected them. Johanna has as well. But it seems to me that whether we proceed with the alternate bid for a fourth field later in the agenda or not, there's a shortfall, and there's also timing issues with the funds coming in versus the need to disperse them earlier sometimes.
Yep.
And so maybe in this regard, it's important to talk about all this together.
Yeah.
But in this regard, the question is how do we want to finance the need for bridge? Is it, I think we need it. We need a bridge, right, Travis? Is that accurate to
Going
say?
eventually.
So the question is given that we are going to need to spend money that has not yet come in as part of this project, which is true of many other big projects like this, what's the most sensible and responsible way to do it? I am very, very in agreement with points that have been made that I'm uninterested in underwriting this with monies that we need for other projects and priorities.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie, what was the hotel motel revenue last year?
8% down.
8% down. I
I
mean,
think-
that
I
is,
think it was like
Curious for a ballpark
600,000.
figure.
no, I get it. And I,
Curious how much is allotted to
Yeah.
other obligations currently?
yeah. And go ahead.
No, let me look it up.
While you're doing it, I think that is actually what triggered my terror, right? Because those were fun facts, but what they really are telling you is that less people are coming to Decorah. Tourism is down. Sales tax is up because prices are up. So it's the signal of an economy that's struggling. So while it's great, our sales tax is up, that's just because the cost of goods are up. It is frightening that hotel motel is 8% less. And like I said, I have in my mind projects that we are already thinking of that hotel motel money to use and do. And it's really hard to think about not doing those things because we're going to use it to pay back a ball field. And that's where I'm really struggling.
Ball field will bring money to hotel motel though.
So the question on hotel motel breakdown, fiscal 26 generated 561,000 approximately in hotel motel. Fiscal 27 was nearly 700,000. So, and I say that knowing that my numbers are based on quarterly distributions, but the state changed from quarterly to monthly, which are probably going to be the differences between my reporting and Carrie's.
It's not 8%. I can say that.
So the state used to send us distributions quarterly. Now it's monthly. So when I'm looking at the receipt of them, it's for 3 months prior the collections made into that quarter.
You mean it was, did you tell us fiscal 25 and fiscal 26?
Correct.
Okay.
You said 26 and 27.
Which is
Oh,
why
did I really?
we're
I'm
looking
sorry.
at you sideways.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I understand the difference in the reporting. It just feels like a fiscal year comparison. Anyways, did we hear in the fun facts that hotel motel was down or up?
Down.
It was down 8%.
Okay, but that number is $150,000 bigger.
No, because of the fiscal year mix up. It's 25-26 went from 561 to 700. And Carrie's saying that the 700 is down 8% this year. That's my understanding
It
of
was
what's going on.
8% compared to fiscal year 27, but again,
We're not.
or I'm sorry, fiscal 25. I apologize. Now you got me jinxed. Fiscal year 25, fiscal year 26. So it's down. But again, that has changed due to the way they pay out that money. So I did not go into a deep dive into that fund and stuff. It was just kind of looking at the ending balances of where we were at. So that's what I was looking at when, you know, the ending balance and the credits. So
And
I
that's
don't want you to overanalyze that number either, not, because I was not thinking it would get into this kind of depth.
And that's due to monthly reimbursements opposed to quarter.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
139.
Just for, transparency to the public and learning, I think, Carrie, could you add to your fun facts that you're going to share with us those actual dollars and maybe like a sentence about the month and quarterly difference? Because what we wrote down is that in fiscal 26, $700,000 came in, and in fiscal 25, $550,000 came in. And I can't make $150,000 more equal 8% less, even if you move that money around in some way by disbursements, which you would have to give me in a chart.
Unless I'm 2 months short on my revenue because they're now paid monthly as opposed to quarterly. And that's what I'm trying to get at is I don't have the last, I only would show the quarterly receipts. So I don't have the revenues for the last 2 months of that quarter.
So
Okay.
where was that last?
If we could just put that in the fun facts, because as we're borrowing $969,000, maybe we should also be trusted by the public to be able to figure out 8%.
I feel like I at least am ready to separate the two things. My understanding now, I feel it difficult to talk about one without the other. But at this point, we need to vote on the bridge loan, not called a bridge loan, to cover anything that wouldn't come in at a timing that we needed to come in. I'm feeling a little bit more confident in that, and I feel like I could vote on that right now.
Can I clarify something that I just do? That's just, I have the general fund here. When I was analyzing it, it was the credits, it was the money that came in. So for hotel motel in June, the end of year, the year-to-date credits was $469,495. For fiscal year 26, it was $432,000, $432,316. That is where I am getting my numbers from.
Gotcha.
Is the year-to-date credits on the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025 compared to June 30th, 2026.
And June 30th, 2026 is which number again?
That is the $432,316.
So just receipts, that's,
Receipt
yeah.
into the 113 fund, which is the hotel motel fund.
But we don't know if that's an artifact of timing changes in terms of state disbursements or represents a real decline in hotel motel revenue coming into the city.
Well, and that is the part that goes into the 113 fund, and also part of that goes into the 004 fund, which is the trail maintenance. Am I thinking correct?
Gotcha. Yeah,
Mayor-
that's what I was going to say. Those numbers can't be right. But
Mayor-
that would
But
make
that's what
sense.
I was
if
representing on the 113. Again, I wasn't going too deep into it.
Yeah, 225,000 of those revenues go to the park hotel motel fund. So add 225,000 to each
That's where the
one of
numbers come
those numbers.
Mayor-
That's why I turned this way. I was like, Carrie, that can't be right for revenues. Into the 113.
We do have a motion and a second.
Mayor, I
Sure.
think Stephanie has some information maybe.
Oh.
Could we call her to the?
Thanks, Steph.
You kind of already said it, but there was a change in the reporting around that time. That June of 2025 is when they switched from quarterly distributions to monthly. So like that whole kind of year was different from what we typically see. Because I also track it on I think you track it on a fiscal year and I track it on a calendar year. And so everything was sort of messed up there. I had to sort of hit pause on our tracking. So
Can I put you on a horrible spot?
sure. Yeah.
Because you deal with the hotel motel funds.
Yeah.
Right? In which, in my mind, that's where this shortfall would come from.
Okay.
Knowing all the ways that we use those funds, how are you feeling about? Are you confident that this project? You've also been involved in the fundraising. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm curious just from your perspective.
Yeah. I mean, when we wrote the CAT grant, all it talked about was the return, right? So we're investing in an asset for the community that then plays into kids and families and brings tournaments and lodging and food expenses. And I don't know if any of you have gone to these tournaments. I know my nephew's playing them, And so we've gone and you go there and you spend a lot of money and you typically spend the night. And so there's opportunities for our hotels to get additional nights. And that's sort of where our CAT grant played into is this is an economic development opportunity for us. While we also need it as a community, we need this sort of asset. We have to have ball diamonds somewhere. Pickleball courts are very popular. It's the fastest growing sport in the US right now. So it's a good opportunity for Decorah, and I think that you will see hotel motel grow because of it.
Okay, thanks.
I'm still actually unsure of my vote, partially because I'm not sure if this is the wisest way to cover the need for bridge financing, or if we should think harder about interdepartmental that the historic practice we've used. And so I'm curious what other council members think about that particular issue.
We
What
could,
what I might offer real quick is I will fully take a look into that to see what alternatives we might have on that interfund loan. But what I am half wondering, and the chief reason this was coming forward from a staff perspective is this, I'm going to call it generic route, is by pledging the full faith and credit, it gives all kinds of flexibility within the council's choice of how we are going to repay. Now, if council says we want to dedicate certain amount of revenues as collateral, essentially, that takes away like the full faith and credit component of it, but then you got to collateralize some form of revenue stream. And I use the term collateralize deliberately because it's different than obligating. So we can obligate hotel motel dollars on the repayment should shortfalls come up. That's different than collateralizing them in making this revenue based.
and I think to your point, Steve, if we do this and we decide when a bill comes due that we would rather pay it with a fund, we could do that rather than using the loan, because every time we're going to make a payment on this loan, it has to come to us. So let's say Travis says, all right, we've got a $200,000 loan we need to pay. We can either now use this line of credit we just took out. Maybe that's a better way to describe it. I don't know. Or
Clear, this action does not take out a line of credit.
Okay.
I want to be clear. This does not take out debt at this point.
okay, sorry.
This is another step needed by council to take on any kind of debt.
It's okay, bridge loan, right? Can I? How do we refer
This starts the process.
This starts the
This
process.
doesn't even create.
But let's just say we need $200,000.
Nobody has any clue.
Okay, but anyhow, we can do this step, and then to your point, Steve, if we decide to use a different fund to pay that bill, we could do it that way too. So I guess this, in my mind, is the most flexible way to deal with this.
Yeah, I hate that we've now switched arguments here, Emily, but I gosh, I think that I think if we ask Decorah residents and taxpayers, so I think this is confusing. That's what I think. I think, and I don't mean, I think I now understand all the issues. I think that the people we serve will see this way of doing something that's pretty normal and ordinary. This is something we all do in our household finances one way or the other. Like we just find a way to make sure that money's in the account when we need to pay the bills. And then as good stewards of Decorah's finances, we don't want to overextend ourselves on too big of a project that there aren't anticipated revenues to cover, right? Those are two separate conversations. My concern with this particular way is that I feel as if it's going to be hard for Decorah voters to understand that this is merely a financial mechanism to ensure that we can pay our bills as they come in. And I think there's better ways of doing that are more clear with the people we serve. And I'd like to know more about them. And Travis, sounds like you're not necessarily ready to explain exactly what an alternative might look like. One concern I do have while you formulate your answer, one concern I do have is that I believe in Iowa law, all of this is reversible by petition and a special election, right? And I, as the lucky person who ran 3 times for this seat in the course of like 9 months, know that Decorah voters love petitions and they love special elections. And so I anticipate that even if we proceed with this, it will not be as flexible or convenient or smooth as we think. There will be confusion in the community, confusion that I understand and sympathize with because it's taken me a long time to get here and I work on this stuff hours a week. And so I would rather see us proceed a different way to deal with the fact that we will have to pay bills, whether 3 fields or 4. We will have to pay bills as they come in to make this project happen. I just don't think this is the best way to do it. I think I'd rather do interdepartmental loans, I think. But I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. That's where I'm at right now.
So the reason I can't give you a clear answer of yes, we can do it right with our existing fund balances is statutorily, you cannot obligate more than 3 months of your operating expenses within each one of those funds. There are requirements on how much you can do an interfund loan. So down the road, realistically, I think we can do small pieces here and there, but it's probably going to have to be different funds even within the process. So it might be 200,000 with the water fund. It might be 200,000 to electric franchise fee revenues. We might have to segment it.
It's a good time.
I would need more time to figure out what is possible. And I've also got to compare that to what we're going to have coming as actual expenses within those funds in the next fiscal year to make sure we have a balance that can maintain that. And on the hotel motel side, if there's a pretty clear consensus that that's an ideal fund for this type of not a bridge loan, that's a pretty easy one because I know what has been obligated out of that fund pretty easily through our budget process.
That's the only fund I can see using to pay this down. So in my mind, it's the hotel motel. It's why I asked Mark. It's why I asked Steph, because to me, those are what we risk. Park rec projects, economic development projects. What I've heard tonight from economic development and park rec is that this isn't a risk, but an opportunity. And I'm willing to trust in that and go ahead with this, not a bridge loan.
I also want to echo that my nephew plays, they every weekend they go to a different tournament and they spend the whole weekend in Dubuque and Cedar Rapids. And I think that it's inevitable that it will pump money into hotel motel. I also think about, like 10 years back in Elkader, there was a big discussion on putting money down for a whitewater park that was going to be in the Turkey River. It was going to bring people to town, tourism, kayaking. And there was this big just blow up about spending money on the project. And so as a result of that, they pulled a bunch of funding out of it and stuck kind of the bare minimum into it. And then it just ended up being wasted money because it wasn't enough to bring people to town and to do what it said it was going to do. And then it kind of failed over the long run. And then the people who were against spending money in the first place and limited the amount being put on it, then they got to say that they were right the whole time because it wasn't enough. Like it was a waste of money, which I know is not completely aligned with this, but I think that faith in the pledges that have come, faith in the people that will come as a result of what this is, and the idea that we don't have to spend the money. We're just taking it out as a precautionary thing, and that there is another step after this that we can vote down if we need to or if we want to. So I'm in support of moving forward despite the anxiety currently felt by a lot of us.
All right. I think Randy made a motion. Parker made a second. Roll call.
Aye.
Okay, Jizzle, Parker.
Aye.
Let's see, this is our second vote. So Miss Linich,
Aye.
Bergen,
No.
Zittergruen,
No.
Whittle,
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2. Item 8, consider site plan for Marvin Development of Montana LLC Taco Bell at 2037 State Highway 9.
Okay, I'm going to Shannon. It looks like you're still on.
Yes, that is correct.
Perfect. Okay. So we can't see on the screens here, but I can see Shannon popped up. She's associated with Marvin Development of Montana for the Taco Bell project. If we have any questions, she's available via Zoom. So City Code Section 17.36.020 requires that a proposed development submit a site plan for review by the Planning and Zoning Commission and a recommendation made to the City Council. The city has received an application from Marvin Development of Montana LLC for the construction of a Taco Bell at 2037 State Highway 9 that is east of the Fairfield Inn and Suites. The city excuse me. The city engineer's review of a previous submittal that has since expired. That's why we're here again today. Site plans expire after 180 days of award if no building permit's been pulled. So the previous review identified 4 contingencies that council approved at the last year in November. Those 4 contingencies have all been updated in the new site plan submittal and met. So planning and zoning actually recommends approval with no contingencies listed.
I would move for approval of the project.
Okay, motion by Chisel, seconded by Masilinich. Any further discussion? I can say Liv Moss. Yo quiero Taco Bell.
So Shannon, I will just point out, probably for the sake of everyone in the room, that expectation is still shovels in the ground September 1, correct?
That is our goal. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, we're out for bid right now, and our full intent is to start September 1st. So, after this meeting tonight to apply for our permit.
So that way I don't have to be asked anymore about where Taco Bell is and why it's not here yet.
Yeah, we're doing our best to get in this year.
Thank you, Shannon.
You get asked on the daily.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Shannon. I'm a high school teacher, so I've been asked, I don't know how many thousands of times when Taco Bell is going to be here. So I appreciate that.
Wonderful. And I'm happy to hear it. Thank you all very much.
All right. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Jizzle.
Aye.
Miss Linich. Bergen.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Bring back the quesarito. Aye.
Whittle.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Parker.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.
Item 9, consider resolution supporting fundraising efforts for Pavilion Market Plaza.
All right, so we do have representation of the Fritzes both in person as well as online. So the city council has expressed interest in entering into a memorandum of understanding with Jim and Liz Fritz on the concept of a performance pavilion solar campuses at the west end of North Alley parking lot. Staff has met with the Fritzes, and there are still some details to further work out before a memorandum of understanding with any depth is ready to be presented. However, the proposed resolution would show support for the project, but not authorize the project itself. The resolution notes the intent of the project is to be constructed using private funds. And the reason for proposing it as a resolution is that it could be used not just as an indication to the Fritzes and the public, the council support of the project and fundraising efforts, but often when you apply for a grant, it requires a resolution of the city. So this could also be used for that purpose.
I make a motion to support the resolution for the fundraising efforts for the Pavilion Market Plaza.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Neal, seconded by Whittle. Any further discussion?
This vote I have no trepidation about. I think that it's an awesome project. I know Fritz's have been putting a lot of work into it, and they've been doing all the legwork except for what staff's been working on. The vision is there. I think that the funding will be there. The support from Alliance so far has been there, which was the biggest surprise to me, but I'm grateful for it. And just dressing up the North Alley. I mean, it's gonna be great. I also went to college in Davis, California, and they had a similar situation for their farmers market. And every Thursday night, that park was packed. And they had a similar canopy situation and music every Thursday. And it was just like it was kind of the beating heart of Davis at that time. So I think that this is a strong project and will be a major asset, especially where it's located right there. I mean, it's going to be the new school, the co-op. It's already kind of like the center of town. So I think it's going to be great. I'm eager to support it and excited to see what it becomes.
Plus, Jim, you just sat for an hour and a half deliberation about what happens when projects are short. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm excited as well, Cody. And talking to Jim and Liz, it's going to be a great project, and I have full faith in it.
Yeah, I feel like I keep hearing from community members both tonight. I really appreciated our meeting the other day, Fritz's, and heard from community members today out and about town. I think Jim's been whipping up some support. I think that's great. Lots of people who think this is a good project. That, of course, is not what I feel council needs to be convinced of. I think that what we need to hear from the public and also make sure the public understands is that that this project has to be one that doesn't put the city in a weaker position long term. There are parallels here to this conversation about the sports complex that I won't draw out because we've talked about that enough tonight. But I think it's important to apply learning going forward that we need to understand how maintenance happens, how what the funding mechanism is. And I really appreciate the work that Jim and Liz did to spell that out. I appreciate the creative work that you've all done with Alliant, with partners at New Pioneer, sorry, not New Pioneer Co-op. That's my Iowa City brain talking. I'm a proud member of Oneota Co-op, and I really appreciate all the work that you've done putting us in this position. But remember, like the question here isn't, is this a good idea? Is this the way that we can make the city strongest? Is this the best version of this that we can come up with? And I do think those are two different conversations. I hope to keep having that conversation even as we support this idea in concept. One last thing that I want to say to my colleagues and to the community and maybe to staff and to Jim and others at large, but even if this doesn't cost the people of Decorah property taxes, or even if we have a good plan for paying the ongoing costs of this, which we don't have for the sports complex, I think that that we need to remember that in showing this sign of support as a council, we are obliging a very, very valuable community asset in the form of land in the heart of our community to this project. I do think this is an appropriate use of that valuable community asset, but it is not free, and it's the people we serve. And so I want to make sure that we're all aware that even if this doesn't affect our budget very much, this is still a big expenditure of a community resource. And I just, that's contra all the comments that this doesn't cost the city anything. It of course does. It costs us very valuable land, and I think it's an appropriate use. I just want to acknowledge that.
Well,
I think I would.
along those lines, Steve, losing the land, losing the parking, when we're already losing the parking, the 48-hour lot is gone. We're going to lose it along Hively Street. Betterment, we have been talking about this, our parking committee. As we push to put more upstairs housing downtown, we need parking for those folks. And then in the wintertime, we need an alternate spot for them to go so we can clean the lots. So there's a lot of trepidation about losing this parking lot. And then also with the roundabout and people crossing there, having another distraction in that area is a concern with folks that I've been talking to. So those are things that we do need to think about, and in our long-term planning, we might have forgotten the parking issue for downtown, which the downtown businesses are very concerned about.
I'm interested in supporting this resolution this evening for many reasons. Conceptually, I think it's a great consideration of best use of plan that is now a mostly empty parking lot that needs significant maintenance. And best use is farmers market, which will not be like removed from that opportunity moving forward. In fact, enhanced experience for farmers market. Also, though, I think it is to the spirit of learning, right? I really appreciate the formalization of city interest and explanation of commitment to fundraising efforts to be done now at this part of the project instead of when we're much further along. So I just really like kudos to the Fritzes for being willing to be nimble and flexible in how we work towards an established MOU. And thank you to staff for hearing council's interest and moving forward. I would add to the potential contribution of the city via land usage, also the immediate contribution of a really amazing city resource, which is our staff, who I think by committing time and energy in this phase of the project is going to get us at a place where we can make a realistic and thus feasible decision later. And I know that that comes on top of a conversation where we are constantly wondering what we could take off of your plates. So just thank you for the time that is spent thus far and what I know will be some more time. And then I think there'll be opportunity to share other thoughts and ideas later.
Any other comments?
Just that I know that the parking question is going to be part of this conversation as we go forward. A point that our former colleague Ross Hadley often made is something that he heard once from a consultant, one of the many, many consultants we've brought into this community to help us understand parking and how we can better steward our land and make sure that there's parking in support of our business and residential needs downtown. Decorah doesn't have a parking availability problem. It has a parking management problem. And I guess the other thing I want to say is, like, you know, I almost always find a spot far closer to any destination downtown in Decorah that I want to go to than I ever get at Walmart to the front door. I'm just saying that.
Jim, what did we say? How many spots would we potentially lose parking wise? Wasn't it only like 8 or something? I thought it was pretty minimal, wasn't it?
The green space itself will actually take up about 49.
Okay.
And I kind of want to encourage everyone to also understand that I have gone to Adam Riley and I've asked, when is this lot used mostly? Because it's mostly school activities. And he told me it was commencement, and he told me it was whenever there's district football playoffs. And there will now be 50 new spots in the lot over by the new elementary school that will be actually closer to where it's going to be needed. Now, granted, there's Nordic Fest, and I will acknowledge that there's snow removal, but those are very small, as opposed to when we talk valuable land, 95% of the time, that lot is less than a third full. And as far as utilizing a resource that's very valuable to a better extent, I believe that this particular project does just that.
Agreed. Thank you, Jim. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Got a motion by Neal, seconded by Whittle. Roll call.
Neal?
Aye.
Whittle?
Aye.
Zittergruen?
Aye.
Chisel?
No.
Parker?
Aye.
Miss Linich?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Nate, as well. Item 10, consider resolution calling special election on the issuance of not to exceed $20,900,000 general obligation bonds or capital loan notes.
Okay, so that amount is what's referred to as the par amount. So it covers closing costs and all borrowing costs associated with a 20.39 million construction estimated cost. The proposed resolution places the following question on the ballot for the November 3rd general election. And again, state of Iowa requires that bond proceedings are only held on the November general election of any given year. So, shall the city of Decorah, state of Iowa, issue its general obligation bonds or capital loan notes in an amount not exceeding the amount of $20,900,000 in one or more series for the purpose of paying costs of designing, constructing, reconstructing, enlarging, improving, equipping, and furnishing municipal facilities, including a new fire station and renovation of City Hall with related site improvements.
I make a motion to call a special election on the issuance not to exceed 20,900,000 of general obligation bonds towards the new municipal center.
Motion by Neil, second by Masilinich. Any further discussion?
I just want to say, after being on council for 5.5 years, I think I've been on council. Maybe it's just 5 years. I think I'm up next year. Vote for me again.
Longer than that, aren't you?
Oh, I am longer than that. Oh, you're right.
Say, I've been here 5 years.
All right. Well, 5, 10. I don't know how long. 2 terms that we have been working and needing a new fire station. And I feel like the process has created really great partnerships. We have learned a tremendous amount. I can't tell you of all the things that I've been most proud of. The other day when we were sitting with Rural Fire and recognizing how the relationship between the city and Rural Fire has evolved since I got on council and was appointed to the Public Safety Committee, when everyone was like, good luck, right? And to be honest, I just love those guys on Rural Fire. And I appreciate the way that they think and where we have come together on this. So if the news has not gone out, there is a conversation that Rural Fire is willing to contribute $1 million towards this project, which will help Decorah tremendously in terms of how this will impact our property tax, right? It will make sure that we can keep property taxes at a reasonable growth in order to take on this debt and use that funds to offset that property tax until the Locust Road levy comes off. And so that homeowners will not feel, or property taxpayers will not feel the full impacts of this $20 million bond at any point, because we will lose additional debt that we have along the process. Travis will explain this way more beautifully.
You did great.
But it really is, I think it is remarkable. I think it is creative. I want to give a shout out to staff for all the hard work. I want to give a shout out to the fire department for all the ways that they have been asked to reduce, to cut, to do differently, to think outside the box. And most importantly, I want to just give a shout out to the fire department in general, who needs a new fire department. And for those of you who are like, okay, then why City Hall? I think it's really important to recognize that as we give the fire department what they need in terms of their building, that leaves a hole, literally, in this one. And this building has been limping along for years, and to do anything other than to fix the things that need to be fixed and to deal with what would be essentially a ball and chain on City Hall and not removing that part of the fire station would be a disservice to the taxpayer and cost us more in the long run. So as you think about why these two things together, it's because what we're doing is we're taking one building and separating it into two, and we can't just rip off one side of one building and say, we're not going to do anything here. I think that would cost the taxpayer dearly in the long run. So I think I've said enough. Of all the priorities we've ever set as a council, from my first time on this, the fire station has been number one. And I think it's time that we put our efforts into this fully from now until November. where we talk to our constituents, when we get out there and we door knock and we explain why it is we need a new fire station and why it is that our staff can no longer limp along with improper air conditioning and no heat and a roof that leaks and windows that don't open and all of the ways in which City Hall is failing and falling down. So with that, I'll let others speak, but
Just for clarity and education for the media, is this a 50+1 or 60?
This is 60.
60.
Yeah. And one thing I want to point out is based on the verbiage, and it actually kind of elaborates on Emily's comments earlier. So this question does point out about series of loans. Now, logistically, this likely makes the best sense to bid out the fire station component, the new fire station component first, and get that awarded. And quite honestly, the city hall portion gets the leftovers. You know, that was a comment we heard last time was, you know, how do we know they're going to get what they're going to get? Just logistically speaking, you've got to build the new station, get them out before you can put the rest of this out to bid. So I want to point it out. It does talk about a series of, and that's likely the process moving forward.
I like that statement. I definitely, we need a new fire department. No question about that. I think still my resourcefulness is thinking that we could do something with the bay. I don't know, but I'm for this, and I also want to give shout out to Rural Fire. Just having the discussion with those guys in the last few meetings, it's been fun, and just I'm grateful that they're willing to put forth, and I think it's a good collaboration between the two, and also big picture, just the divide between the city of Decorah and the rural surrounding. I think that this is a good glimmer of light that we're more like we're more excited to work together on things, and I think that we're coming out of an era of division, not just locally but also big picture, and it's just a good opportunity to work closely with them on something like this, and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, Cody, what you're saying reminds me of just the value of building community resiliency. And I think this is this is an investment that largely lands on Decorah taxpayers and has benefited our entire area. And it's good to partner. And I'll pitch in a little bit. I'm interested in supporting this because I think united front and shared common interest across our governmental bodies are important when we ask for this big of a contribution increase in taxes in our community. And I really respected the discussion that the last council had about that fact, bringing this to the ballot in November. And so a fun and scary yes vote from me tonight. And then in just a proposal, Mayor Carlson, I think we heard at the beginning of the meeting that we had removed an item for a work session next week. In terms of putting our time, energy, and our clear ability to speak for long periods of time towards a priority for the city, which I believe educating voters on this ballot question is, I might suggest that we convene next Monday and have a more coordinated approach to voter education, building from the lessons learned from last year.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you, Jana. Maybe we could invite fire folks as well. Just to brainstorm how we do this.
Yeah. Oh, and for the record, I will still be a pain in the ass because this can't cost any more money than this, and we should fundraise and we should have other contributions, and this number is still very, very big and still bigger than last year, even though people were really creative and all the things Emily said about about giving and compromising.
But I might add that if we don't pass it this time, it's going to get more expensive.
Yeah. The construction estimates do include 6.5% per year inflationary factors. So that like if this does get approved, we can go through the design process, get it out to bid, and by the time construction happens, our numbers estimate today are 13% higher than, or excuse me, our construction costs are estimated to be 13% higher than they are today.
Meaning this bid includes that 13%.
Correct.
Yeah, not to confuse at all. We are anticipating a horrible economy and therefore.
Well, and I'm really pointing out 6.5% per year is what we're anticipating these costs to grow by.
Yeah.
So while I can certainly understand also as a city resident that we'll be paying for this for the next 20 years, I'd rather not pay more, quite frankly.
And now we're getting into the conversation that Johanna invited us to have next week. And I certainly agree. I was going to ask not that question. I love the idea of a work session devoted to communication and education discussions. But that's going to be, I think that's as important as anything is ensuring that, we're about to talk about hiring an outside consultant for a parks master plan. If we've got money kicking around to hire outside consultants, I'd love to make sure that we have a smart and useful communication strategy to hit this. So
I have asked for a proposal.
Okay.
From at least one.
All right. Well, I am given that and given what I really heartened to know of in terms of the support of our fire department for this proposal and the support of our partners who represent those who are served by our fire department outside of city limits. I'm in support of this, but I also wish it didn't cost this much, and I hope that we end up staying under budget like other projects in town have recently sometimes, and that we don't take that as an invitation to spend more, but to not borrow as much. It's important to try to keep the leash on this, and I will be a voice pushing for that financial restraint, even if we end up with projections not, if things go better than we think that they're going to go. I really hope that we're not asking for 23 million next year.
This says not to exceed to.
No, I mean, if
know.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like that's my fears. Like last year was like,
Yep.
I think it's time to do this.
Yeah, I was just kind of backing up to the previous statement. So like I had referred, the rest of city municipal building gets the leftovers. It actually wasn't the best way to put it because this is a not to exceed amount. So if those numbers come in golden on the fire station, that doesn't mean the rest of it needs to be allocated to the work on this building. So that is a not to exceed amount. It can be less.
And I don't think it should cost this much, but I don't think it's our fault that it's going to cost this much. I think it's not our fault. I think that there's a lot of regulations and rules that we don't control that are making us build like this. And I also think that as a state, we need to find a way to fix emergency service financing so that all of those who benefit from it also pay for it fairly.
All right, we have a motion by Neil, seconded by Miscelinich. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Neil?
Aye.
Miss Lynch? Chisel?
Aye.
Whittle?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Bergen?
Aye.
Zittergren?
Aye.
Before we move on, can I say one thing that I would love to see accompany this? I think that we have demonstrated through countless votes and discussions, right? 4-hour meetings, that we are a fiscally conservative, extremely cautious, risk-adverse council who takes fiduciary responsibility very seriously. I hope that voters understand this unanimous vote is one driven by great need for our community in terms of safety and security. And that we have not taken this lightly in any way, shape, or form. And so I hope that voters can recognize that and appreciate the needs that we have in this area. We all will pay the same property tax increases that everybody else does, right? We're not somehow exempt for the votes that we take. We will feel it, but we do it for our community and what's in the best interest of our community. And we do it for the protection of our fire guys and gals who risk their lives every fire to protect us. So
Actually, Emily, to piggyback off that, I think you don't have to tell people. You just look at our bond rating
yeah, true. Thank you.
and also our debt capacity and what we take out compared to other communities.
Yeah.
I think those are two signs that you don't really have to explain to people.
I know.
that
It
it's
just,
that-
I think it's important because I think people,
for sure.
yeah, anyhow, I'm proud of the work that we've done and
Absolutely. All right, item 11, consider resolution approving plan specifications, estimate of cost and proposed form of contract for the construction of the Decorah Athletic Complex bid package 2.
All right, so I can pare down my background. We talked a little bit about this, but to highlight, the city received one bid from Skyline Construction with a base bid of $779,355, which is $8,140.25, or about 1% below the engineer's estimate of $787,495.25. The alternate to add dugouts complete build out of field 4 would be an additional $220,580, which is $96,815 or 78% over that engineer's estimate of $123,765.
Okay. Complete build out, but it looks like they're looking at the base of 779. It does have fencing around it, correct?
No, I would say, but not like outfield fencing, and
It'll have foul line
it's
fencing,
got what, the 8 foot tall,
8 foot tall foul line fencing.
not the full length. It stopped
100
short. Yeah, stop short. It's the protection. If
Yeah.
there's a tournament and somebody's out there warming up, practicing on that field, it's meant to protect from those
Okay.
foul drives.
Okay. The $125,000 contingent with this, is that for the full build out or is that for the base?
That was made on the full build out.
what are our options?
Well, purely factually speaking and high level, award, don't award, table.
Get creative.
I think the difficult decision here is sometimes when you come on and there's already a project that's been worked on for years and you want to see it through to completion and you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith. That's difficult. I do think, though, that we have shown as a community that we're willing to take on these projects, which is why I don't have a lot of reservations about the Fritzes either. Because I feel like even just now within a couple of days, we already have $145,000 pledged, or roughly, in just a couple more days of knocking doors and making phone calls. I do think that this will benefit Decorah greatly. I know that there's some hard ways that it's hard to quantify it sometimes, but I do think it's worth the risk. Just my opinion.
I really don't have other options for you than, quite honestly, than those three, just flat out. A lot of the conversation had before is, I don't want to be the one that says that faith component in the community. I'll let the mayor say that, as he just did.
I also don't have to vote, so it's easy.
Right. But, I pointed out the factual conversations we had with IEDA, the concerns on the potential reduced funding there, which doesn't do us really any favors on not awarding the project, because then it could potentially create a shortfall on what's already awarded. And unfortunately, that's not an unknown we can figure out unless we make that ask of them. The 125,000 pledge that came in today, contingent upon full award, does get that. If you look at it reducing this award cost, it does get that alternate below the engineer's estimate and the overall component below. It gets us within, let's see, doing the math, Mark, I had before, what was it, 325,000 after what's come in today? 325,000 short for the full project as of right now. Yeah.
The only way that I am comfortable with this, and I don't think there's any way we can make this pledge, is that the only funds we ever use out of the shortfall is hotel motel. And that it comes from Park and Rec and it comes from economic development, because that is what we are, that is to me, what the opportunity is, right? That's what we're growing, this opportunity. And so I feel like that should be the risk. As we look at the housing project that was in our consent agenda, that to me is also of great importance. I don't want to risk things like that. But if we say, all right, well, we might have a few smaller years of how we grow our park and rec system or what we do there. And I don't know that we can make that pledge in terms of how do we designate that like any shortfall comes out of this, because I do not, like, of all the things I value most, it's my integrity. And I said I wasn't going to use any more property taxes to pay for this thing. And I don't want to. And I don't want to be forced in a situation where I have to. But I believe in the vision, right? I believe in the staff who's telling us this is a good idea, and Park Rec and economic development. And I trust Decorah, and I want to be like, okay, yes, let's do this. But then I want the risk to fall where it should and not on the taxpayer.
So I'm going to say this a little bit tongue in cheek, but I'm going to look at Mark and be like, Mark, after this year, do you have any interest in growing our Park Rec system right now? No. And quite honestly, neither do I. Like, during the goal setting session, I was the one that put down gap here. We need to slow down. I mean, it's great to have our foot on the gas and have all these projects that are happening, but financial capacity, staff capacity, like, we do need to reach equilibrium after this project.
But that's also investing in our pool, right? So things that we already have need investment. So it's the pool, right? Maybe we lose the splash pad because of this. I don't know, but I do know that we have to take care of what we have. And so things might fall to the wayside if we wind up coming short.
Yeah.
And that's where, when people are fundraising, like, that's why it's so important, because you're not just raising funds at this point for this ball field. You're raising funds to protect the resources and the assets we do have. So it's not just support the field, but support our parks department in general, because if we fall short, it is our parks department that will suffer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I guess, a message I think that has to be clear, because I just can't put this on the property tax person.
Yeah, Emily, if you're looking for others to nod, I'm with you that seems like shortfalls, which again, I think they're going to be smaller than we're worried about, likely, but there's no guarantee, and I can't make a guarantee. But if there are shortfalls, I totally agree with you that hotel motel is the appropriate funding source, and that's what I will advocate for.
I'm with you as well on that one.
I mean, this grant is through tourism, essentially, right? So it makes sense that that's where we would look for the additional funding.
And as a reminder, the hotel motel attributed to Parks and Rec, to kind of that bank, is 225,000 a year.
But I'm saying either one, which would be it'll be a hit both ways. I'm just saying hotel motel funds, right? We're using this as economic development. We're talking about Park Rec. I also think, like I said, if people understand that a donation to this is also supporting the whole system,
mm-hmm.
I think that's helpful.
In terms of the resolution, I think it's fairly clear that the donation contingent on us awarding the alternate makes that an easier decision for me. That like Travis said, the math makes that come in under the engineer's estimate, and I suspect that that's not a coincidence, and I'm grateful for whatever led to this. It seems important to someone that we build this alternate and someone who's willing to put their money where their mouth is. And I want to also reiterate my concern that unlike other projects the city's considering taking on, I've had conversations with Travis, like, tell me what you think a maintenance bill for a project like this. Like, what's the capital depreciation on? Travis and I have spitballed some numbers. I wish, as a council, we insisted on an understanding of the ongoing year-to-year hit to our maintenance and staffing costs that having a project like this will represent. I don't think I've seen that information, even if it's been generated as part of the CAT grant proposal or something. It's important to me that I understand where the money's coming from before expanding yet again the scope of the project. I know I agreed to it in spirit last year, Travis. I get that when we applied for the CAT grant. I'm also concerned about, it's not just the choice to build this, but it's us kind of making a commitment to our community on behalf of future taxpayers and future councils that we're going to take care of it and that we're going to replace things as they need replacing. I don't know how quickly a sports complex depreciates, but if it's pretty slow, if it's 2% a year, that's an immediate like $110,000 hit to our operating budget. I'm just making up a number though. I wish someone would give me the real number because I don't know what it is. Is it 5% a year? Because that's a lot more money. Where does that money come from? I mean, the Iowa legislature has limited interest, and I think Decorah taxpayers do as well, in property tax bills going up. And so I'm unhappy and concerned about how this project has proceeded without a really clear shared understanding of how the finances work, not just in terms of getting to the finish line of cutting a ribbon, but what happens on, year 10 and year 20. That said, the question tonight is, what is the most responsible thing to do right now? And it feels to me as if a 4-field complex represents enough of a value add that it's worth the additional city investment. So I think that 4 fields puts you in a position to host different kinds of tournaments, revenue opportunities. I know Cody's mentioned, like, we need those hotel motel taxes that people come to town, they spend money, they go out to restaurants, they shop. And I'm worried that if you put all the money we're investing on one side and even really rosy projections about how much economic activity and additional tax base this creates on the other side, I'm pretty sure that this side's much bigger. I don't see this raising our hotel motel intake by the cost of maintenance and capital depreciation. It's like, I'm not convinced by those. We should build 4 fields because it'll bring money in from out of town and it'll pay for itself. I've heard that kind of argument about a lot of things that don't pay for themselves. I heard in my first year on council that our building inspection program was going to pay for itself. It doesn't pay for itself. That we'd collect enough in permits and fees that would cover the salary of our staff. And that's just not how I think it's worked out for us. So I'm not putting a lot of weight on arguments that this is going to just shake the money tree and create a lot of new economic activity that makes this a smart investment. I think this costs the city something. That said, given where we're at, I think the smart decision is to, especially given the $125,000 commitment, I think the smart decision is to move forward with the 4th field.
That being said, I'd move forward with the resolution with the add-on.
You're moving it?
Yep.
I'll second.
So I'm not in support of the motion tonight, and largely that is a contribution late to the conversation because I wasn't involved earlier, and not. I think it's healthy for us to not agree all the time and to push ourselves to think more deeply about things. So just a couple of considerations for fellow council members, more for future projects. I greatly value that we have people in our community that are committed to wealth distribution because I think it's an important thing to happen in our community. I find it very frustrating when donors come on the day of the meeting for the second time and put money on the table only with the outcome of a vote in the way that they would like it to be. And we are a democracy, and those of us up here were elected to represent the citizens of our community. And I resent the pressure that some feel that they can put us under. And that is a message I'd like our community to hear and for us to consider in how we think about just fundraising and equity in our community and how we decide for our citizens where money goes. I also am very concerned that we continue to learn information. So tonight, we talked about one justification for ball fields is that fields need to be cared for and maintenance and a rotation needs to happen. And I think this is a household analogy. I think this is a business analogy, and it is a city government analogy that when we argue to build something bigger in order to support the maintenance, we are walking down an unsustainable pathway. And so considerations in investments at this table need to be not for purchase price. They are for what it takes and costs further down. And do you know who doesn't pay for that? Donors. It's what is unsexy to raise money for. It is the hardest asks. And then who pays for it is your city government. And we might find ways for a while for that to come out of hotel motel dollars, maybe out of lost. We know there is legislation moving between chambers with interest in capping those funds for us. And so we have a reality that in 2 years, in 4 years, in 8 years, this is property tax money being used to maintain fields that feel paid for today. And I don't think that there will be a beautiful fundraising plan and campaign that successfully brings in hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair and maintain fields. So baking in what ongoing expense is needs to be a part of how we govern moving forward.
Any further comments?
Johanna, to make sure I understand you, you're saying better to proceed with 3 because it reduces the size of the ongoing maintenance obligation the city is committing to, and is more appropriate in scale for a community our size. That's me grabbing something you said earlier.
Yeah, that's correct. And, you know, a long time ago, this started in building a new school and replacing one ball field. So I think we're winning in a lot of places here.
Anyone else care to comment? Okay, seeing none. I have a motion by Chisel, seconded by Zittergruen. Roll call.
Chisel.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Whittle.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Lynch.
Aye.
Bergen.
No.
Motion passes 6-1. Item 12, consider resolution issuing request for proposal for Parks and Recreation System Comprehensive Plan.
Okay, so the proposed resolution issues the RFP for Parks and Rec comp plan that be sent to consulting firms. Proposed committee of Parks and Recreation Director, that's Mark. Park Superintendent John Geiger, council rep, asking for council to have consensus tonight on who that is, as well as Park Board rep, consensus at their meeting on Thursday will be asked. And Sustainability Commission member Jeremy Brill is the only one that offered when I asked. And so that would be the scoring committee. Previous draft was tabled with additional considerations requested by council members at that meeting. In addition, staff were directed to reach out to Park Board and Sustainability Commission members for individual feedback. While some general support was offered in response, comments were minimal and mostly formatting and clarification. The current draft reflects comments from council at August 3rd meeting and feedback from Park Board and Sustainability Commission members. I did have one member email me later this afternoon. So while they didn't offer any direct feedback, like insert this here, or I think this needs to say that, they did comment that they didn't believe it reflected sustainability strong enough. And I should be clear, they received the original draft.
Not the new one. Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
not the new
okay.
one.
This is a Parks and Rec member who emailed you?
Sustainability.
Sustainability, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you send them the new updates?
No, I did not, because I sent it out asking for the individual feedback.
Sure.
And I didn't hear back until this afternoon.
Okay. I make a motion that we approve the request for the Park and Rec comprehensive plan.
Second. And I would be willing to sit on that committee with them. I've got time now.
Okay, motion by Neil, seconded by Chisel. Any
Except
further
Wednesdays.
discussion?
Except Wednesdays.
Consensus. I heard Randy offer. I just want to make sure there's consensus there that that's okay.
I don't have an issue with it. Anyone else?
I was going to offer, and knowing that there is a sustainability commission member offered, didn't want to feel like a duplicate there. But open. I'm also not retired.
I think Randy would be fine on it, especially given that many of my concerns regarding a plan that isn't just aspirational but responsible. I feel like he'll bring that perspective into the scoring.
Okay.
And there's one member of sustainability.
Jeremy.
Jeremy, bro. Yep. Any other further discussion? Roll call.
Neil.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Mislinich. Bergen.
Aye.
Zittergrun.
Aye.
Whittle.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 13, we have some board and commission vacancies still. We got one on Tree Board, Historic Preservation Commission, Human Rights Commission, and Library Board, just an FYI. Item 14, any other matters? Seeing none, hearing none. Item 15, adjournment.
To adjourn.
Thank you, Randy.